Today I am here to teach you about the workshop 1, which is about facilitating children's storytelling activities. I personally have a lot of different experiences when it comes to storytelling activities. And so we want to dwell a little bit deeper now today into how we can actually make children interested in stories and tell them and, just facilitate the storytelling activities. I have a quick overview again of all our partners. I already told you a little bit about me. I've been working for 6 years in my kindergarten, and we will get a little bit closer into some personal stories of mine also, where I think storytelling is facilitated, and what kind of examples you could also use in your kindergarten or institutions. First off, we actually have our first Mentimeter here. I also put the QR code on the slide. So if you do not have it yet, or if you lost it, then you can just use this here. You can just open your phone or wherever you are accessing this from and just refresh the page or just take a look at it. Actually, I think it's not needed to refresh. And you could give us some answers about what you think, what comes to your mind when you think about storytelling. I will give you a few minutes for this, and then we will take a look at the results. I can already see some words here. Of course, the bigger words are the ones that also are mentioned quite a few times. And these are actually very nice answers. We have, for example, imagination. So, of course, stories also promote creativity and imagination. So that's a very nice answer. We have creativity, a very big point. Fairy tales and characters, very nice. And also, of course, narration and having a voice, which we'll also get back to in our slide in a moment. So I can see that there are already a lot of good answers here, and I can see that you all had already experiences with this. All right, thank you for your participation. We will get back to our slide. Thank you, yeah. So I could see already, like I mentioned, we already had great answers. A lot of these topics will come up in our presentation too, and maybe also for the basics, I will go a little bit deeper into that, explain especially how we can facilitate storytelling and also what kind of techniques we could use to help you in your everyday work. If you want to go a little bit deeper into a story and help children maybe actually make a story if they want to too. For the next slide, we will talk quickly about what you will learn today. We, of course, will talk first about a basic child-centered approach. We want everybody to understand how children learn, because this is relevant for the way that we promote storytelling. because storytelling is also deeply involved with learning and also teaching children how to tell a story. So this is an interesting part for us, of course, to talk about. Next up, we have why storytelling matters. So, of course, in the bigger picture, we also want to talk about why storytelling is actually something we should do and we should promote, and what kind of benefits it, of course, has. And we will also go deeper into this. Next up, we are very interested in giving you hands-on techniques that you could also use in your work and in your kindergartens. Maybe also some examples, if especially if other teachers or educators are sharing ways and techniques that they were working with, which might as well happen here too. And we don't want to let you go with just the theory. We also want to give you a little bit of an idea, like I said, what you could apply in your classrooms and what kind of books we are, for example, using. This leads me actually to a little personal story of mine and a little book that I really like. This is the book which is called We're Going on a Bear Hunt. And We're Going on a Bear Hunt is a very fun book for children. It is a book that you can, of course, just read to the children, but this special book is in that way special that it has a lot of engagement and a lot of repetition and imaginative play. So in this story, you actually are trying to find a bear, and you have to do different motions, and you have to go through different sections of the book that include the children to think also what is happening next and what can we do next. So I'm not going to go through all of the parts of the book, of course, but just, for example, a little sequence of the book is that they are going through, or we are going through, a forest or a river. And when we are going, for example, through the river, there is a motion that the kids come up with. So we ask them, what can we do to get through the river? And of course, they will say, we are swimming through the river. So we all have to do that swimming motion and make a splashing sound, for example. And the nice thing about that is this really facilitates the engagement and storytelling in the children, because they also have to come up with ideas how to continue the story. So you could do this in all kinds of ways, but I really like to ask the children, what could we do to get through the river? And every time you get to a new section, you ask the children what we could do, and it's very interactive that way. They all join in, and sometimes they even when they repeated the book a couple of times, they know the words, they know what comes up next, and they are really interested in chanting the lyrics, whatever is in the book, and maybe even changing and varying the story. You know, you could always make it so that you do not go through a forest or woods or a river. You could go over a playground or over a bridge, or all kinds of different ways. So this is something that really is close to me and is a little story of mine that sparks imagination. And maybe this is also something that you could take into your classroom, maybe make a story out of this, or you could even advance the story in the end. But about this and actually how to ask children how to continue a story, we will get a little bit later. Next up, we have our show and tell activity. Last time, in our last session, you were asked if you could bring an item or a storytelling tool or book or whatever you have that encourages storytelling in children. So I would be very, very happy if somebody could raise their hand. You can do that by clicking on the bottom and raising your hand, and then I can see you. And of course, then we can maybe talk a little bit about what you brought and how this encourages storytelling in children. And maybe if you have a story about this too. Is there anybody that would like to show their item that they brought, if they have brought anything. Alexandra, I can see you. Would you like to show us something or tell us about something?
So, hi guys. Basically, I set a reminder to bring an object today, so I didn't forget. I brought I don't know if you can see it, my lovely wooden owl. He's called Fyodor. Obviously, he's living in the deep fairy woods, and he also has glasses, so he's really wise and very old. I found this object quite telling, because also in the kindergarten that I'm working, I am the teacher of the owl group. But so I always liked owls, but this one I have for many, many years. Like, I have it already for the last 15 years. It was a present of a dear friend of mine. Yeah, so I brought this object, and I find, honestly, I never brought it in the kindergarten with me. I should, because I would be quite intrigued to see what the children are coming up with. I think he is quite imaginative. He can spark some creativity and fantasy. So yeah, maybe I will do that tomorrow, and I will let you know next time how it went.
Awesome. Thank you, Alexandra. That was very nice. Yeah, and this is actually something that we have talked about before too, actually, in our last session. It could be actually have potential for younger kids, especially, to engage in a story, because if you just sit down and you ask them, okay, well, now we are creating a story, then this might be a pretty difficult task for children to do at once. But for example, if you bring a little owl or another plushie or a little doll, then this could be a very, very easy way to engage children in actually coming up with a story, because they think, for example, like you said, it's a very wise owl. He's got glasses, he's got that look. And so the children might just, hop on that right away and come up with a story that's really, really nice. Oh, Sonja, I see you too. Would you like to show something?
Yeah, I have a small dice, a wooden dice. I got it in a workshop, and we were working on our skills. It's not important which kind of skill it is. And then we were invited to draw or to write something on all the different 6 levels. So, and I think dice like that, or also another thing like a stone, can help a lot to encourage creativity. For example, another thing that I really like is having a stone which is quite heavy and nice, and it goes through all hands in the round, and everybody can say something. So to have like a democratic way of talking, it also works with adults, of course, not only with kids.
Yeah, that's very great. I like that too. And that's very nice. Thank you for showing, because that's basically what we get back into later too. It's promoting a safe environment, where everybody can, pass the stone to the next person. This is also what we do in kindergarten a lot of the times, where you can pass it to the next person and say something, but you can, of course, also, skip it and say, I don't want to speak right now, then I just give it to the next person. It's very comforting for everybody. Hannah, do you want to show something too? Did you bring something?
Yeah, I want to show you these ladybugs we use usually for counting and for mathematics. But the reason I want to introduce you for this, because always when we are using these for counting and doing mathematic things, children wants to make stories about these ladybugs, because some bugs don't have any dots. So someone has lots of dots. So children are always having imagination that, oh, maybe this one is sad one because she doesn't have any dots, and this have so plenty, and why wouldn't she share some dots for the bugs who don't have any, or other way they can make stories about how old these bugs are. So ladybugs can be like just newborns because they don't have any dots, or then they can be quite old and wise and something like that. They always want to tell stories about this after.
Great, I like that.
Things. Yeah.
Thank you very much. That's awesome. Yeah, that's a great way too, because the kids will also wonder, why doesn't he have any spots? Because usually they do have spots. Very, very nice. So all these little storytelling tools that everybody brought are amazing. You could always bring this in. Oh, Kirsten, I see that you want to say something.
Sorry about that. Let me just unmute myself and put the video on. I hope you can see. So I brought 2 giraffes. And what it does is I do a lot of sensory work with the children. So I couldn't bring the whole basin, but I usually have a sensory bin that has a theme related. And very often it will be, for instance, if it's a wild animal theme related basin, because the kids through sensory play lose their anxiety of speech, which is really amazing. Even the most quietest child starts conversing. We make little stories. So at present, I have a forest one, but I couldn't bring all of it with. So today I decided just to show off the wild ones. The wild animal basin has got a lot of animals in the basin and a lot of objects surrounding it. What does one find in the bush where one finds these animals? And the children start telling me about their adventures that they have had with their parents. And it creates for many open opportunities to actually make stories. And then we start adding to the stories and what would happen if the giraffe was small and the other one was a very big giraffe already. How would the other one make the other one feel better? Or if it's has a tail that is different to the wooden, for instance, that has a tail hanging down, but it's a wooden giraffe, could we use our imagination? And could we also accept the fact that they both don't look the same, that they are different? So it inspires the children to work with objects and to be able to have a sensory basin with a lot of different things that will trigger off for the story to continue and become bigger.
Yes, very much. Good. Thank you very much. Great. And I really can see that, the sensory aspect, it's very appealing for the children. They right away want to, know what it is and what it can do. And so this is a very, very good way to promote storytelling for sure. Very nice. Thank you. And I think we are already out of time for our show and tell section. So I'll get back to our presentation and let you wait no longer. All right, we are right away getting back to our Mentimeter. You can just check the link you have already or get back to our to your phone. And this question right now is, which storytelling techniques do you think are the most engaging for children? This is considered to be like a ranking or like a multiple choice answer. So you can just drag your answers and then we'll compare and see what kind of answers we've got. This is always very exciting to watch because it kind of changes in between sometimes a little bit. I thank you for your participation. I can see that right now I start from the bottom usually so that we can save the most interesting answers usually for the at the last. And the sixth place right now is using digital tools for storytelling. This will also be part of the next workshop. Of course, it's a little bit difficult to always include digital tools, but we have a short section on that later on too, where we could maybe get a little bit into it. In the fifth place, we have letting children continue a story. Very nice way too, to engage storytelling. On the fourth place, we have creating collaborative stories, which also a very, very interesting task for children because It includes a lot of teamwork. In third place, we have, still changing, very interesting, but I'll just go with the top 3. We have asking open-ended questions. Very nice way that you could include this into your everyday life to make children, talk a little bit more, not just say yes or no. And in the second place, we have using props and visual aids. Of course, costumes and, for example, the giraffes we have just seen, or the ladybug or the owl, they are very engaging for children. And they just love, creating stories with something that they have in their hands or costume they have on. Very nice. Now, in the first place, we have encouraging role-playing and movement. Very interesting. This is a very, very common answer, I think, because also in most current kindergartens, you have like a section or role-playing area where children just like to act out their own stories. They come up with the wildest ideas of a dragon, doing something crazy, and the other kids have to, do something with it. And this is, of course, always promoted with costumes too. And there's a lot of movement involved because they are not, strictly sitting down and listening to a story. It's always very, very nice to see that too. Perfect. Thank you for your answers. All right. Thank you. Now I will talk a little bit about how children learn. This might be a lot of basic information for some people already, but I think it is a very good idea to quickly go through this, see actually what kind of learners there are. There are, of course, quite a few, but we talk about the 3 most common. And in this case, some children are visual learners, so they see, they learn by seeing. And of course, we had this also before. Visual aids are very good. Images, colors, and visual cues in general. They are really a good way for visual learners to absorb information. So this could also be picture books with bright illustrations, of course, which is very engaging for visual learners. Puppet shows or theaters are very engaging too, because you can see a lot of things happening. And then, of course, when you actually talk about a story or you've been working on a story, you could also draw or paint the characters from a story, because then they can really, you can see what's in their inner mind, what they think about the character, and they can make it visually, they can create it visually. So that's the first aspect we have about how the children learn. Secondly, of course, comes the auditory learners. So all the children that are learning by hearing. And this is, of course, best promoted through listening, rhythm, and spoken words. And auditory learners are, of course, they like to read stories, or have them read stories aloud with expressive voices. So if you really get into the story, or if they are really getting into the story and there's a lot of talking or singing or rhymes, then that's very appealing for them. Also repetitive phrases. So kind of like in my bear book and the bear hunt book, the text almost always repeats, and they like to hear that and then also repeat it themselves. So they know actually what's coming on the next page, and they also like to say it out aloud. So that's very nice. And another good way to appeal to auditory learners, also that you can encourage children to retell stories in their own words too, that they can actually hear what they say and also what the story is about in their own words. Next up, we have the kinesthetic learners. So these children are best learning through movement and touch. And this is also, you could tell in a way that this is learning by doing, because they really like to get into things by touching it, just running around, climbing on something, feeling. For example, if we would have the giraffes or the owl or the ladybug, they really want to right away touch it, and take it in their hands and feel it. And that is a good way for them to learn, and then also maybe get attached to a story. If you bring a book in, and that book also includes some kind of prop, they really like to hold this in their hand, and this is very, very engaging for them. Also, if you want to promote stories with them, you could also act out stories with them so that they have to actually move and role play a little bit. Of course, you can also do this very, very movement-based when it's about like an obstacle course. You could go to your local gym or the gym in your kindergarten, and then you could, make an obstacle course where they have to jump over a fire, or they have to get into the castle and climb on a tower. And this would be very, very interesting for them too. And of course, we could also use Play-Doh or different materials to actually create a character for a story. This could, of course, also be included with video or photos if you want to make a stop motion kind of thing. Of course, you have to have the experience to do that, but with Play-Doh and things like this, it could really, really work well. And also hand movements, also emotions, expressions. This could also be something that they really like to mimic, because children also like to look in the mirror and then make faces and things like this. And this could also be a good way, to ask the children, okay, can you have a face like the tiger in the story, and then they try to replicate that. That's a very, very good way to have them have an understanding of this and of the story, of course. Next up, we have the next section of our slide, which is why storytelling actually matters. This is a little bit of like, okay, why do we do this, and what kind of benefits does it have? And storytelling in general is very good for the cognitive benefits, or for cognitive actions. And this is because it's sequencing events. So there's usually a beginning, a middle part, and an end to a story. And so this is something that also, connects synapses in the brain, makes children understand, okay, the story works like this. And this goes hand in hand with cause and effect. Of course, if something happens in the book, then there's usually also an effect. If it's a book about, sharing, and one of the children is taking away from the other children, then of course the effect is that there will be conflict. And for logical thinking, of course, this is, overlaps a little bit with the first 2 points. There are usually logical consequences also for a story, and also the ending needs to make kind of sense. For the linguistic benefits, of course, this is one of the biggest benefits that you can have through storytelling. When children listen to a story, they learn a lot of new vocabulary. They learn how new words that are included in stories. And they might ask the teachers too, what does this word mean? And then, of course, you can tell them. And it also improves sentence structures. So every sentence is structured in a certain way. You might as well know that too. And so children also learn by listening, and also by, of course, speaking and making sentences themselves, that there is a certain way that sentences are structured. This might as well also go hand in hand with communication, because they might listen to a story, but they might also tell a story. And also between the characters in the stories, there is some sort of communication. And so if we talk also about collaborative storytelling, you can see that there is a lot, that's a big task for children to work on, and it's not easy. So this is really like a challenge that also improves communication in a great way. Then we have the social emotional benefits, which is a very, very interesting part about this too. We usually, or educators in general, usually take storybooks to help children process emotions, for example. There are so many different kinds of books that all show different emotions, and also maybe make children reflect on their own emotions, and also maybe understand, okay, what do I look like when I frown? What do I look like when I smile? What do I look like, or what does the character in the book look like when they are super happy? That is a very, very interesting part. They also develop empathy. So if we talk about a book about sharing, for example, they might understand how the other person feels much, much better. And we want to also, would be a great cooperation if you think about the kids telling the story. They have to which gets to the next point already, understand the different perspectives, different from their own. They have to understand, okay, well, if I take it away from this child, I might understand now how they feel, because I've seen this in the book. They will feel sad, for example. And then another part we are very interested in is building confidence in children. So we want to create a flexible way, a creative and flexible way for children to express ideas and be themselves. And I really liked the little things you brought all at the show and tell, because that's actually for shy children that are holding back a little bit more than the others. It's a good way to engage them, because they might be interested in why does the giraffe look like this? And it's interesting, and I want to know more about this. And so they might open up a little bit more and become more confident by telling a story, for example. And this is something that you will always have to work on. And children will get much, much more confidence if they know they are heard. And people will listen to my story. And, you know, I like stories in general, and somebody is listening to me there. That's just a very, very good way to do that. And in the very end, we will also talk about creating a safe space for storytelling where children feel heard, but also they feel like they can tell a story if they want to, and nobody's ignoring it, for example. So we really want to do that too, because storytelling matters in that regard, that they will get more confident. Next up, we have techniques for facilitating storytelling. So we want to improve storytelling or make children tell stories. And there are certain ways that teachers can improve that. So, for example, we are talking about open-ended questions. Open-ended questions, I will give you an example right here. Could be, for example, what do you think happens next in the story? If you give them an answer that ends with yes or no, then the story will end very, very quickly. Because if you ask them, is the tiger sad in this book? Then they will say, yes, he is sad. And then that's over. So we always try to ask open-ended questions that really engages them in saying the next sentence and keep talking, you know, maybe why that is, you know, why is always a good word for that too. Another one would, what would you do in that story? So that they really get into the storytelling and maybe find their own ways, what they would do and what they're interested in. Another one could be, how could the story end differently? Of course, the stories usually have an end, but it's actually quite simple to ask children to find a way or have maybe an idea how they would change it. And that is also very, very good for the children, because they feel also like, oh, I can change this and I can make my own story. So we like to do that with the open-ended questions too. Next, we have the props and visual aids. We've talked about this already a lot, so I will just give you a few ideas already. Of course, dolls or hand puppets. Puppets are great too. Very engaging for children, because they can kind of let loose and talk to this character. Because as a teacher, if you just take the puppet and you put your hand in it, for example, the children will quickly, you know, think of this as Ferdi Fuchs or something, Ferdi Fox, you know, that they really know this is a character now, and this is not anymore my teacher. So very interesting. We also have costumes. These could be almost used in any kind of storytelling activity for children. Children could put on their own costumes and then play out a story. It's usually quite common that kindergartens or other institutions have their own costume boxes where children can freely, you know, choose their costumes, express themselves, and maybe even tell the story afterwards, what happened in their little theater play that they made with their costumes. Then I would like to talk to you quickly about story dice. So I don't know how many people know about story dice, but this little picture over here in the middle shows little cubes and little dice. And these can be bought, but they can also be, they are quite easy to make yourself. And these give in little prompts and little pictures, like the house and like the ladder and the butterfly. And if you roll them and you get little prompts, then you can ask the children, okay, we have gotten a house and a ladder and a butterfly. Now let's make a story out of this. And this is a very good way to involve children in the story and make them think, you know, I know what I have to put in the story. I just have to, you know, do everything around it with the help of my teacher. So very, very nice way to engage children in storytelling. Then we have role-playing and movement. This goes hand in hand with costumes, of course, and what I just mentioned. You can act out stories, like the picture is a very good reference, I suppose, the dragon fighting the prince, for example, a very common story, and children love to play this out, especially the children that are very kinesthetic or very movement-based. They have a lot of energy. They would rather maybe play out a story instead of sitting down and listening. Then also, of course, we have expression through movement. They would like to maybe show something that they can do, and they can do this in a story, also through movement, and maybe roar. They can roar like a dragon, or they can jump as high as a horse. And there are endless possibilities here, of course. And also what I mentioned before, acting out emotions. So especially analyzing what the characters in a story looks like, or maybe them showing you what they think sad looks like, for example, is a very, very important part for children also to understand characters and stories, and also maybe, creating their own stories. Because if it's maybe a sad story, which is also totally fine, then they can show that with their face too, and also develop empathy with this, of course. Next up, we have collaborative storytelling, which is quite a difficult task sometimes because it involves a lot of teamwork and also, creating a story together, which can be quite difficult here and there. But actually, it's a great way to teach children communication and cooperation. We have a very, very simple task that you could put into any situation actually during your workday, which would be, for example, once upon a time. So if you ask your children, or if you give them the prompt, like once upon a time, and they have to finish the sentence, they could say, once upon a time, there was a dragonfly. And then you would say to the next kid, to the next child, okay, you will have to come up with the next sentence. What could the dragon do next? And if you keep going with this, you actually, in the end, have a very nice story that the children could be very, very confident and proud of. They could be proud of that they worked on this together. And this is a very, very good way to facilitate storytelling collaboratively and among the kids. So very, very easy to build into your everyday work. Then we have digital storytelling tools. I will not go too deep into this because we actually have more on this in the next workshop on the 2nd of April. But I will give you a few quick hints because it's also at the bottom of the ranking. Of course, there are digital storybooks. You can use these on iPads or, whatever, the tablets. Very engaging too. You can turn your stories into animation. That's kind of what I meant with the Play-Doh. You could make a stop motion kind of animation, or there are different apps that can do that too, very well actually. And this could also maybe appeal to children that are very interested in digital tools or media. We also have, or I also like to facilitate storytelling by taking photos and videos to tell a story. You could use, the children could take photos and then print them out for the groups. You can always hang them up and then let them tell a story of what happened there. If you want to facilitate a little bit more, you could also give them, prompts, or give them a kind of a story that they could take photos of. And then they kind of have to get creative or a video about it. That's always very, very interesting too. Now we would like to get into a breakout room exercise. You can take a moment to look at the tasks we are giving you, and then you will be separated into breakout rooms. The first task will be that we get to know each other and share our experiences and ideas. And then if you could come up with 2 or 3 new ideas of techniques that you could use to facilitate storytelling. So did you have something, an idea or a technique that you usually use and that you can share with the others? And then also the question is, how can we engage children as storytellers? This goes hand in hand with the techniques also, and also some ideas. So I would like you to think about this. Maybe I can first give a little bit impression of our room. I think we were room 4. We had some people have great ideas about and stories also about painting pictures. They were engaged in a story, and then they also the children were bringing pictures to them, and they were saying, "Hey, this is the character from your book," and they were telling them what they looked like in their imagination. So that's a great way to do it too. And another story we had was also that one of the children wasn't speaking, but they really started to come out of their shell by interacting with dolls or a puppet. And so they really the first time ever talked with the teacher when they were acting out a story with dolls. So very, very interesting story here. Is there maybe another room that wants to share?
Isabel had a great idea from the parents, so they brought up stories.
Yeah, I have shared an experience, a methodology used by the kindergarten teacher, educator of my children, because I am not myself educator, I am a secondary level teacher. And one of the strategy was starting a story with the kids in the class. Then the kids would take the first part of the story home, and the parents were expected to finish the story. Then the kids would bring the story, the complete story, to the class, and they would share the complete stories with the friends, and the educator would ask the kids to answer some questions. What would have you done differently? What do you think about this decision of your parents? Just technique to involve parents and the kids, and to have the kids analyze the different stories.
Oh, very interesting. Thank you, Isabel. If that's all, if there's nobody else that wants to share, then I would go back to our presentation. And we are almost at the end. Right, we had finished with our breakout room exercise, and I quickly just want to tell you a few ways, or actually summarize a little bit about how we can apply what we've learned. So I just wanted to give you with you on the way that child-centered learning plays a big role when it comes to storytelling, because there are so many different kind of learners, and that you should provide in your environment all kinds of different learning aspects, so visual learning, that you put up pictures or pictures from storybooks, and also auditory, that they can maybe listen to a story or an audiobook, or, picture books in general, that the children will want to read it. And also, of course, for example, in a little costume corner where they can dress up and move up and live out their little stories that they have. And these are small changes that can have a big impact on your work. So also the open-ended questions, I want to remind, try to engage the children by asking them open-ended questions, which include, for example, why do you think the tiger did that? Or how would you change the story, so that they really get into the idea of, I want to make a story and I want to further the story. And a perfect example for this is also, creating a safe space for storytelling, which has been mentioned before, like shy children that really open up when they get into storytelling. But for that, we really have to create a space that allows that, so that has books in it, that has stories in it, and also teachers, of course, that are very, very happy and engaged when it comes to storytelling, that really are interested in stories. And with this, I would like to thank you for your participation. We want to remind you, it's very important to keep fostering storytelling in children,